Hey, everybody, welcome to the Jim Masters Show, entertainment, lifestyle, variety talk show series. It's so great to have you with us today. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for making us a part of your day. And I hope you're in the mood for some great conversation, entertainment, and so much more, because we've got a terrific entertainer joining us here on the Jim Masters Show live series. Yes, Jeff Harnar is here. Now, you have heard of him, of course, through many performances, musical specials, and all kinds of incredible things, because he's a multi-award winning New York Cabaret concert and recording artist extraordinaire. He puts on a phenomenal show. His shows always sell out. He has such a wonderful time with his audiences too. And the reviews, oh boy, throughout the years, the reviews for all of his shows and concerts and specials and everything that he does have been extraordinary. He's an award-winning performer. He's been doing this for a long time. He loves what he does. Here are some of the shows that have happened in the past and people that he's had an opportunity to celebrate. Phenomenal music. Sammy Cahn, he has celebrated. Here's another one from the past. This was tied with a PBS special, the 1959 Broadway Songbook as well. There's another great shot here, Carried Away, and some really fantastic shows. He's paid tribute to Cole Porter and many others, taking you down memory lane here as well. Again, these are through the years, and we're going to take a look at some of these as well, including some new material that is out that he's very excited about, and we're very excited about celebrating here on the show. Again, he is a consummate performer. He's been doing this for a good number of years, and we are celebrating this fabulous new album, and there's an incredible new show that is tied to this album as well. Let me tell you a little bit about Jeff Harnar, if this is the very first time that you're learning about him. He's an award-winning cabaret concert recording artist, and his Carnegie Hall appearances include both the Cole Porter and Noel Coward Centennial Galas. Jeff's televised PBS concerts include the 1959 Broadway Songbook with music director Alex Rybeck. Also, an American Songbook, Stephen Sondheim, co-starring KT Sullivan and Michael Feinstein's Live at NJPAC. Jeff toured with Broadway's Shauna Hicks in their Symphony Pops Concert, I Got Rhythm, Mickey and Judy's Hollywood. Jeff has won multiple MAC, Bistro, and BroadwayWorld Cabaret Awards, the Noel Coward Foundation Cabaret Award, and he has released 4 solo albums, including Dancing in the Dark, also on PS Classics, and he is also an award-winning director, having really directed critically acclaimed shows for Tova Feldsha and Rita Gardner and many others. He teaches master classes as well, which is fantastic. And he's actually performed in the movie Joshua Tree, 1951, A Portrait of James Dean, from Iconoclast Films, which is really amazing. Let me tell you about also the incredible event that is coming up, tied to what you're seeing on the screen, which is this phenomenal new album that he's celebrating. Award-winning concert and recording artist Jeff Harnar celebrates his acclaimed new album from PS Classics, I Know Things Now, My Life in Sondheim's Words, with an encore New York City engagement after rave reviews and packed houses at the Laurie Beecham Theater, coming September 18th and 25th in New York City. The award-winning nightclub and concert artist is celebrating PS Classics album, I Know Things Now, My Life in Sondheim's Words, with the encore concert engagement at the Laurie Beecham Theater in New York for 2 Sunday night performances on September 18th, 7 p.m. and September 25th at 4 p.m. In addition to music director John Weber on piano, Jeff will be joined by Steve Doyle on bass and also Ray Marchia on drums. He'll also perform a special show at Middle C Jazz in Charlotte, North Carolina on Tuesday, September 20th. Now, we do have an audience that watches our show all across the United States, Canada, all around the world. So those of you in Carolina, you might be able to catch that show. The album, which is currently available on CD and digital formats, boasts a 20-piece orchestra conducted by renowned jazz piano virtuoso John Weber, host of NPR's Piano Jazz. That's, of course, National Public Radio, and is produced by Bart Michael and Ronald Thomas, serving as executive producer. Currently available, you see it on the screen. You can get it at Amazon.com And also, tickets are available at jeffharnar.com. We'll mention that on the screen as well. Really cool stuff. This is really hot off the presses. He's so excited about this, and we're so excited to have him here on the show as well. We'll talk about that and catch up with him on other incredible things that he is doing as we celebrate his music and his extraordinary career here on this episode of the Jim Masters Show. So great to have everybody here. Don't forget, gang, if you would like to comment during the show, just subscribe to our YouTube channel. When you subscribe to the YouTube channel, that will give you the opportunity to allow us to connect with you. Maybe we'll show some of those on the screen, but you can comment with each other as well. And don't forget to give this episode a like, a nice hearty like, if you enjoyed this episode as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is Jim Masters TV, and that's where we house over 750 plus and growing episodes of our entertainment, lifestyle, variety talk show series. All right, with all that said, all that excitement, let's welcome Jeff to the show, coming to us direct from New York City. Jeff, welcome to the Jim Masters Show. How are you?
Hi, Jim. Well, I'm duly impressed. That was quite an introduction. Thank you. You've done a lot of research and archiving. I'm very flattered. Thank you.
The pleasure is all mine, and I hope that that intro is worthy of something maybe that you'd get at the Grammys or the Oscars.
Oh, I should be so lucky.
Before we begin, congratulations on all the wonderful things that have been happening in your life musically and then some. But how did you first get started? What inspired you early on as a kid to want to go into performance, the arts, and entertainment? Was the house filled with music? What were those early inspirations for you, Jeff?
My parents certainly had a wonderful eclectic record collection, and that's the inspiration for one of my albums, which is called Because of You, 50s Gold, which is a lot of the wonderful music I heard around the house growing up. Since I was a baby, whenever you would turn on music, I would respond. I mean, it's just been my place of bliss for as long as I can remember. So we moved a lot while I was growing up. I was born in the wrong Manhattan for me. I was born in Manhattan Beach, California, and it took like 7 moves to get to the Manhattan where I live now.
The Manhattan, yeah.
The Manhattan. I love Manhattan Beach. There's nothing wrong with it, but
yeah.
Some people, the thrill that some get looking at the ocean view, I get looking at a skyline view. That's just, I don't know what that is in me, but nonetheless, it was there. So music was always a place of bliss, and when I was 5, we were living in Connecticut. We were living in Riverside, Connecticut. So that my dad was a madman during the 1960s. He worked in PR for the Ford Motor Company. We moved to the Manhattan suburbs so that Dad could be part of the 1965 World's Fair. And which was a spectacular way to meet New York City.
A Robert Moses production, yes.
It
legendary
was
Robert Moses,
splendid. So we were 9. I was 9 when we moved. We're going to make the move from Connecticut to Chicago. And my parents decided I should have the gift of seeing a Broadway show. And I've already skipped over the fact that. When we were living in Michigan, I had a very prescient friend of my parents, Joan Cahow, who we just lost this year. But she was doing a community theater production of How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. I was 5 years old, and I was going to see the show that night, and she had the wherewithal to sit me down with the record because she knew I loved music. So I listened to the songs, and then I went that night and saw the show. And of course, it's a wonderful musical to begin with, but to know the songs and see someone I know up on the stage, I was just hooked. So, next came Finian's Rainbow. And of course, I'm of the age where Peter Pan flew into my living room once a year, and Leslie Ann Warren was Cinderella. So I really did love musical theater. And so my parents thought that for my 9th birthday, and before we left New York, I should get to see a Broadway show. And the one I picked after doing my research, it was between Steve and Edie and Golden Rainbow or The Happy Time with Robert Goulet.
Oh, yeah, sure.
and I got both the albums and listened to it, and I chose The Happy Time. And I'm so glad I did, because there were children my age in the cast. And that was really it.
Wow.
Be in a Broadway theater and see 9-year-old children on that stage. I just thought that's something I have to do. So we moved to the Chicago area, and my mom, knowing that that's what I wanted to do, saw there was a community theater production of The Music Man. So she got me that album, and there's a great part for a 9-year-old boy in that. And I auditioned and got it, and had the time of my life doing the part of Winthrop in The Music Man. And then a talent agent from Chicago saw that production and started auditioning me for TV commercials. So by the time I was 10, I had all my union cards.
Wow.
And it was, what was great about it was my parents would have supported anything that I chose to do.
Were they in the industry at all?
Not at all. And in fact, my mom was a spectacular stay-at-home mom, and my dad was a great provider doing PR for Ford Motor Company.
That's right. Yeah.
And it has so much to do with why I love Cabaret, and I can get back to that later. Is the element of what a publicist does, and the image. You and I were talking earlier about your wonderful logo, and how that's the first impression anyone gets. So I love all of that, as well as the performing. And being a cabaret performer, I get to do a little bit of all of that, which I love. But so I had all these talent agents. I had a talent agent and this work when I was 10, 11, 12. And so my parents said, if this is what you want to do, we're going to support it. They sadly didn't push me. I wish they had pushed me.
They would just go ahead and do it, and whatever you do, we're there.
Because for me to do a commercial when I was 10 involved my mom either going downtown to Chicago with me, or, believe it or not, they used to put me on the train, and I would ride alone into the city, and my dad would meet me and take me to the call. So
you were in the suburbs of Chicago, and then you'd go into Chicago?
I mean, imagine the days when you could put a 10-year-old child on a train and feel that's safe. And
they get there safe, and they come back safe.
Yeah. But they did a lot. There were things I did that were nighttime shoots, and my dad would, be up all night with me doing that. So they were incredibly supportive, incredibly. So that's how it all began, was the innate desire, some God-given talent, a passion for the music, and parents that fanned the flame for me. And then just the opportunity to be, Chicago's a wonderful place to grow up, being interested in the arts. I went to a great high school, New Trier High School in Winnetka, Illinois, which is where Rock Hudson, Charlton Heston, Bruce Dern, Ralph Bellamy, and more recently Liz and Ann Hampton Calloway were classmates of mine. So the theater program there was extraordinary. And so I was exposed to great teachers and great performing opportunities all through my young life. And I had a wonderful voice teacher in high school, William Rush. So I've been very fortunate as far as being, how I feel it was the right place, the right time, with the right people to do what I love to do.
Do you think that, having lived in different parts of the country, did that give you any advantage, that it enhanced anything, maybe in an appreciation of different areas, different cultures? Did that at all sort of add to this desire to want to entertain everybody?
Well, the Harnar Christmas card answer is yes. We have friends all over the country, because we lived in so many wonderful places, and there were wonderful people. The Jeff Harnar inner life story is that I was a child in the time that long distance was expensive, and we waited until the rates went down after 11 o'clock. And as my dad used to say it, with my friends, when we'd move away, out of sight, out of mind, there was no internet, there was no FaceTime. You really were starting over from scratch. So if I had any trauma at all in my life growing up, it probably was the moving so many times, and also dealing with my sexuality, which growing up as a product of the 50s, but a child of the 60s and 70s, was hard. So those are the things I have been ironing out in my life and coming to terms with, which is brings us up to the title of my recent album is called I Know Things Now, which really I could never have recorded. I would never have been able to record an album that made a statement like I Know Things Now at any other decade in my life. It's been a long journey of self-discovery and figuring it out, which is my favorite action, by the way. I love the action of figuring it out.
Yeah, curious. And when you try to figure yourself out, we always try to figure everything else and everyone else out. And sometimes you're not going to be able to figure everybody else out. They have their way of doing whatever they're doing. But when you're exploring yourself, which I think is something that we do as time marches on, when we're 20, we're running around trying to make connections and conquer and do and move forward and create and find our space and find our place and find out who we are. And as time goes on, you start to pause and say, okay, this is what I've done. Kind of like the Sinatra song, When I Was 17, it was a very good year. That kind of thing, which is such a fantastic song.
Irvin Drake wrote that.
Such a great song. Yeah. And it's so true.
He has a wing in his East Hampton house that he calls the When I Was 17.
The When I Was 17 wing.
It was a very good year. Yeah. I mean, that song was very good to him.
So what would you consider early on for you the big break, or one of the big breaks? Obviously, the commercials, getting, the union card early, that's an advantage. However, for you, there was probably some pivotal moments that came along, opportunities that either you created or that came your way that sort of set the motion for you and the development of your career and music. And as things went along, are there a couple of moments that stand out for you when you really look back in time and say, those were essential times, essential people, essential moments that really triggered the forward movement for Jeff?
Yes, I think when I started college at SMU in Dallas, Texas, they do have an extraordinary theater, dance, and music program. But by my sophomore year, I thought the place to be was New York. And that if I transferred to NYU, my parents might subsidize my move to New York, which is what happened. So in New York, there were two things that happened almost at the same time. And I was 26, 25 when it happened, but I was a room service waiter at the Regency Hotel while I was a student during the day. And I waited on so many celebrities. I kept a journal since I was 15. I have 49 books of these. But
I did that too, 13, 14, 15. All of a sudden, I was into the journaling of things. It's an interesting age, that middle teenage age. You want to start documenting things in your life. It's kind of amazing, isn't it?
Yes. I realized even then I couldn't tell you what happened 3 days ago. So I thought I should at least write enough down that I could remember. But that particular journal, I would come home every night and write down, the people like Olivia Newton-John is someone I got to be alone in the room with. It's different as a room service waiter than waiting on someone in a restaurant. You really, Elizabeth Taylor, I served her breakfast for a week. Just her in her nightgown and me.
And so, in case you're just tuning in now, what did she like to have? Did she have a breakfast of choice?
Yes, she did. It was Special K with half and half and sliced figs on it. And
wow.
she was
no eggs Benedict or anything.
No, this was 1980, 1985 or 6. So she was svelte, and
yes.
She looked great, and her eyes were done even at 7 a.m. And her baby blue, nightgown. She held the door for me. It's crazy. That stuff's crazy. She would order up her 6-pack of alcohol-free beer because she was just out of the Betty Ford Clinic. I wanted to say to her, what's the point? Really? You drink beer for the flavor?
What was Olivia Newton-John like for you, too? I mean...
Well, that was a very brief moment. At the Regency, they would write VIP on the top of a check. It was handwritten before computers, and it just said, "O and John." John was so I just thought the last name was John because we were taught to greet, hello, Mrs. John or Mr. John. Or so, she opened the door. And again, this is like 7 a.m. and she's in a bathrobe, no makeup, her hair pulled back. And she goes, "Can you grab it?" And I grabbed the door and I was just like, "That's Olivia Newton-John." So I, did my job, which was to wheel the table into the dining room. She was in a suite, and I proceeded to set it all up. And then out she came. She finished up a phone call, and she took the check, and she's writing the tip on and signing it. And I'm just looking at her, and she, the cardinal rule number 1, but she handed it back to me, and I said, "I just have to say how much I love your work," which we're never supposed to do. And she just looked at me and went, "Oh, please don't tell anyone you saw me like this." And she looked beautiful. Of course, she was so kind. She was just, just 9.8 times out of 10. The celebrities were so kind. But anyway, the one that was pivotal was Phyllis McGuire of the McGuire sisters. All 3 of them were in the Regency in 3 separate rooms, and they were planning their comeback. And Phyllis was there for 6 months, so I got to know her quite well. And it came to pass that they let me go from the Regency Hotel because I was the youngest person working there, and they were in a slump and low seniority, whatever.
And one day you forgot the figs with the special K. That's all it took. You forgot the figs. Out.
They heard I embarrassed Olivia Newton-John. So they said you can come by at any time and pick up a letter of recommendation. So I came by at a random time, and I'm down in the basement. And I get my letter of recommendation, and I go to the employees elevator. Which is this is the important part. And there's Phyllis McGuire, down in the employees with her hair in a kerchief, holding her dry cleaning. And I just look at her and I say, "Miss McGuire, what are you doing down here?" And she said, "I'm moving out. This is my moving day. I bought a townhouse on the Upper East Side. I'm I'm so excited." We got in the elevator together. And I said, "Well, this is fortuitous to get to run into you because this is my last day here, and I really wanted to say what a pleasure it was to wait on you." And she said, "Why are they letting you go?" And I explained, and I said, "I'm here getting my letter of recommendation." And she said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Well, come work for me. Come on up to the suite, and I'll put you on the payroll." And that's what she did. She called Las Vegas, which is where her home was, and I was on one phone, she was on the other, and they put me on the payroll, and I walked right up to East 75th Street and started vacuuming her townhouse. And
I was ready.
I worked for Phyllis McGuire for 2 years as the sisters launched their comeback. And that was, master teacher number 1 to be, this close to somebody who had to work really hard to have this wonderful next chapter in her career, but she had to work really hard. The professionalism and the seeing behind the scenes and all of that, and the trust she put in me was one thing. And at the same time, I was getting the desire to sing again. I had stopped singing. I really was kind of in a depression personally. But my music director, who I had already been working with since 1983, said, "If you want to sing, I would suggest connecting you with a director, teacher named Sarah Louise Lazarus." And that's the other great teacher I met. I had never worked with someone who said to me, the definition of a definitive performance is the authenticity and personalization I give to a lyric. I had always thought, well, Frank Sinatra sang it like this, and Judy Garland sang it like that, and these songs belonged to these spectacular singers, and arguably they still do. But her point, which no one had ever been able to get into my head before, was the secret is in the lyrics. And if I am a reliable, believable narrator for the lyric that I've chosen, which is step number 1, is picking the appropriate songs, if I can personalize it so that the phrasing is my own based on my story, then nobody can really knock it. They may not like it, but it's definitively mine because I have made it my own. And that opened up a world to me. At the same time as I was getting this lesson from working with the McGuire sisters. So in time, Sarah got me to a point where I was ready to perform again. And my dream was to have Sarah and Alex Rybeck collaborate with me, which is what happened. I had to leave Phyllis McGuire, which was not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And she didn't take it very well, but I handled it very professionally because I knew that as disappointed as she would remember my deportment about it. And true to form, within 2 years, she had come to see me perform my own show. And shortly after that, called me from Reno and said, I'm reading your review in Variety, and the girls and I think you should come open for us. Wow. So I literally went from cleaning their house to playing their house.
Amazing.
It was an extraordinary kindness she did for me, and an extraordinary lesson. So I look at that, the constellation of those teachers. Alex Rybeck, who's been my music director we're about to celebrate 40 years. This is our 40th year, which in the music business is rare. And Sarah Louise Lazarus was one of my primary teachers. And then Phyllis was, such that encounter, that the kismet, the synchronicity of how we met in that elevator ride, a minute either way, and that would never have happened, and that whole chapter of my life wouldn't have happened. So that was very pivotal to me. And what Phyllis was referring to review-wise when she said, I'm reading your review in Variety, is this collaboration of Sarah, Alex, and myself launched me into the New York nightclub scene when I was 30. With an extraordinary, it still was a time when there were rooms like the Oak Room at the Algonquin and the Ballroom, where I was booked to do 4 or 5 weeks of 7 shows a week. And there were newspapers covering it, the New York Times, the New York Post, the Daily News, Variety. There was print paper, which, being the son of a PR man, there's nothing I knew was of more value than the free column inch that you get by somebody writing about you.
Crucial.
So, and interestingly, just this week I had lunch for the first time with the New York Times critic Stephen Holden, who wrote, I don't know how many reviews of me. From 1988 was the first review till he retired in 2015 was the last review he wrote of me. So all those years, the 80s to 2015, one man at the New York Times more or less carved out the credentials for my career. Because once the New York Times says, this is worth seeing, all of a sudden I was getting booked all around the country.
Then it became
cruise ships and concerts. And, it was a lucky, people always said you were born too late because of the music that I love. But the fact of the matter is I started singing in New York at just the right time, when there was still a platform to hold us up. Now it's changed. Now it's digital. Now everything's all digital. Now I know the value of Jim Masters saying, I'm going to devote a program to you, because, that's very rare.
Well, that's why we say we're bringing back the lost art of conversation. And then somebody also said the other day, and also the lost art of listening. Listening is so important too. A lot of people, they just talk, but they're not really listening. And I think conversation and listening are two fabulous things that we need as humans, and just to keep us all connected and to celebrate life and the simple things in life and the grand things in life, because all of it truly does matter. When these things were happening, this wonderful scenario of, this was taken away, but then this opportunity came right after, and then this sort of moved around, but then this thing came in, which was fantastic. We were also still doing commercials and other things like that since you started that way?
No, that's when my voice changed.
Yes.
My life changed.
Mm-hmm.
It has been a long uphill climb as a baritone versus the life I had as a boy soprano. It really was interesting. And also, I was husky as a child, which is a word I use only because the
You
only
don't hear that word used as much, right?
No, but I modeled Sears husky clothes. That was my one on camera job.
Did you make it into the Sears wish book?
No, not even that. I think I made it into a Sunday supplement.
Sunday supplement. Yeah.
But that was heartbreaking the day I overheard my mom talking to my agents, and she said,
And
"Oh,
the
yes,
word
he's definitely a husky." I was like, "Oh,
gee,
no."
thanks.
So it was. I had no like on camera thing to fall back on. It really was about my soprano voice, and so yeah, I've not had commercial work since. So that was a golden time.
Well, you never know. Somebody watching our show today could say, "Hey, we can do voiceovers and narrations and
No, but you
animated characters."
You mentioned in my bio that one because I don't do commercials. One of my it has nothing to do with that. One of my all-time dreams, because I love movies. I literally go to the movies almost every day.
Yeah.
A dream was to have one of my tracks underscore a scene in a movie, and that happened in that film that you mentioned, Portrait of James Dean, 1951. The producers called and asked if a track from my Sammy Cahn album could be underscore for a scene, and I was like, absolutely. And then they called back a few weeks later and said, we've actually expanded the film and we're going to set that scene in a nightclub. Would you want to come and be the nightclub singer and lip sync? Like, call me Marnie Nixon. Yes.
Lip sync yourself, right? But absolutely, that's a yes.
That was a big yes. So there is some wonderful black and white footage of me in the background in this scene. But it's very fulfilling for me just to hear a wonderful Alex Rybeck arrangement from an album we did that's going to be reissued by PS Classics later this year, from my Sammy Cahn album, which is not available right now, except used on eBay.
When you first arrived in New York, what was that like? What was that feeling? Here you are now, in the big time, the Big Apple. Here's where a lot of the action is. What was that like for you?
Well, when I first got here, it was 1979, and I didn't last. I came as a student at New York University, and well before Christmas, my parents had to come and get me. I reference to it, so just it's a long story, but to make it as short as possible, I have been sober the last 11 and a half years, almost 12 years. Thank God.
Fantastic. Absolutely.
But when I was 19, I developed my first addiction, which was an eating disorder. And throughout my life, my addiction went from an eating disorder to alcoholism to drug addiction, till I finally got the help I needed. But my parents had to come and get me because I starved myself to a weight that made it unmanageable for me to be in New York City. The New York City that I came to in 1979 was the one that's, the hookers on 42nd Street. You could not get to
54 scene and everything, and
I wasn't even had enough wherewithal to get there, because to get to my theater classes, which were on 42nd Street, just that walk through the Pimps and the 42nd Street now is just magnificent.
Completely different, right? When you look back, it's unbelievable.
All those theaters were porn.
Unbelievable, right?
And I'm so glad I got to see it. I'm really glad that I got to see the journey of it.
The full circle swing, yeah.
But for someone in the grips of an eating disorder, it was a very hard city to come to. So I came back in 1982. 1982 is when I really got my toehold here. which didn't mean I was cured, but at least it meant my life was manageable. And
Right.
And New York was still, 8th Avenue was still, a long strip of adult movie theaters and all of
Well,
that.
were you still plugging away in the arts and music during that? And did any of that influence your art at all? The experiences of what you just described?
Not until I got sober could I really access um, that journey. And, so that we're talking about 11 years ago, 11, almost 12 years ago, where I was 51 when I got sober. So now, which is again why this album is called I Know Things Now, my Sondheim album, it has to do with revisiting lessons that I've learned, how I dealt with heartbreak, how I dealt with my sexuality, uh, what it was like to be predatorily sexual, anonymously sexual, what it was like to fall in love and have my heart broken. It has to do with this whole journey, and it has a happy ending because I'm in the best place spiritually that I've ever been in my life these past 11 plus years.
That's fantastic, huh?
It is fantastic. It really, if I couldn't learn it at first, I'm glad I learned it at last. It's really, because I'm in, Barbara Cook once said, they asked her what was it like to be in the golden age of Broadway. She was the lead in The Music Man and Candide, and She Loves Me. And she said, we didn't know it was a golden age. We were just showing up and doing our work. She said, I look back at it now and I realize it was a golden age. So she said, the lesson is pay attention to what's happening now, because this may be a golden age. So I am grateful to be fully cognizant in what I believe is a golden age in my life.
That's beautifully
said. Tough time in the world.
You're right, exactly. You're ready to go, but the world's a little upside down.
The world could use a sobriety check. But
Tell us about your affinity for the incomparable Stephen Sondheim and how you sort of pay homage to this fabulous music, and you make it your own in the beautiful way you just described with this fabulous album, and of course the show that accompanies it as well. Tell us about that.
Well, in the same way that I danced through my life up until I got sober, being artful about my sexuality, I also danced through my life avoiding Stephen Sondheim songs, because that thing I described to you earlier about Judy Garland might sing them this great. And to me, Sondheim songs belong to the Broadway voices that I heard introduce them. I was in New York for a lot of these, original productions of his shows. His material was just too complicated, too challenging, very intimidating to me. So when I had just gotten sober, so I was 51, KT Sullivan, who is another great, profound teacher in my life, and I've known her. We've known each other since the 80s. And she is now the artistic director of the Mabel Mercer Foundation, which hosts the Mabel Mercer Cabaret Convention every fall in New York City. She's a wonderful champion of the American Popular Songbook and a wonderful performer. So she called me back in, I guess it was 2014, and said, I'd like to do a duet show. We had done 9 different duet shows over the decades, but she said, I'd like to do Sondheim. And I thought, if anyone, I did to myself, I thought, okay, I'm sober now. I can do this. I can walk into my fear. And I thought, if there was ever anyone who I could trust more to do this with, it would be KT. And so I said yes. And she said, I think Sandra Lee should direct us. Now, Sandra Lee is the 91-year-old genius, oracle. Sandra Lee was the original Tiger Lily in Peter Pan that I referenced earlier. So Sandra Lee is a name I've known since I was 5. I had that cast album. She danced in as Tiger Lily into my living room once a year. I knew who Sandra Lee was. She also was the original Minnie Fay in Hello Dolly with Carol Channing, and many, many other things. She's a wonderful director, a wonderful writer. But so I said, I think I think I'm brave enough to work with Sandra Lee. And KT suggested we work with John Weber. John Weber is a jazz virtuoso. And, I at that point, I'd worked 30 plus years with Alex Rybeck. And I, with Alex's blessing, took the plunge of working with someone whose vocabulary is jazz, which is very different. Alex writes arrangements for me that are compositions. They're I know exactly the structure of them and where they're going. John, it's much more fluid and improvisational. And so that was.
Do you like the fluid improvisational? Do you like the more structured, or you can work with all of it?
Yes, I love it all.
Yeah.
I feel so lucky right now to be this close with John Weber and this close with Alex Rybeck, because they all just
super talents.
I have great teachers around me. I mean, the wonderful thing about being I call myself a nightclub singer, a cabaret singer, or someone who is a self-contained act. It's like we're driving a car, and we get to choose who gets in the car with us. So I get to choose who my music director is. I'm not in a Broadway show where I have to work with this, dictator of a director or whatever. I get to choose.
You will stand there and you will sing that. Right.
Exactly. That's not the experience, because the ride should be hugely joyful, which doesn't mean it's always easy, but it should be full of wonderful purpose and collaboration. And so I'm very blessed to work with wonderful people and on this Sondheim project. So KT and I did this show. This first show was called Our Time, and we got a rave review in the New York Times with the headline, "Oh, I'm missing the most important element," which is right before, when KT and I were still picking songs, I met with her and said, KT, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. And I would rather not sing any songs together that are a man and a woman in love with each other. I would like to be true to my own sexuality on stage, which would open up a whole other set of songs to me, because I could choose from songs that Sondheim wrote for women to sing and not change the pronouns if I'm true to my sexuality. And she, good improvisation partner, always says yes, and she was like, I love that, and I can do Joanna from Sweeney Todd, and I could, she came up with all these ones that she could do that were gender bending. So we debuted the show, and it got this New York Times review from Stephen Holden that said "Sex Role Reversals in Sondheim" was the headline. And within 2 emails, I'm emailing with Stephen Sondheim. I mean, first I get an email from his assistant saying the boss wants to see the show. And his name is Stephen Clark. And I was like, okay, I'll bite. Who's the boss? Yeah. It didn't occur to me. And he wrote back, Mr. Sondheim.
Mr. Sondheim.
So then I was wondering, is Stephen Clark an anagram? Because I knew Sondheim likes puzzles. Is Stephen Clark somehow Sondheim jumbled, or am I, is this? And
because the only other boss would have been Bruce Springsteen.
Exactly. And so the next thing I know, he's connected me to Stephen Sondheim, and I'll be damned if I'm not emailing Stephen Sondheim, who as I said, this is just the first time I've ever sung his music, and we have just done our first performance. Yeah. I wasn't so nervous to email him. I was pretty excited, and he was like, "I want to come, and this is the date I'd like to come." And interesting side note for people who want to know how thoughtful he was. He said, "I would like to sit in the back table, the last possible seat, and I would like to be somewhere else than in the venue until the lights go down. Because if the audience sees me come in, the show will become them watching me watch you."
He'll take the attention, right?
And I thought that was so kind. And I just asked, could we come over and see you afterwards? And could we take a picture with you? And he said, yes, you can. And so that happened. And now to your question of, was I nervous? I was so terrified, and we were recording every performance with the thought maybe we'd do a live album. There's not one song I sang that night that he came that was usable. you can hear that my breathing, the whole point of breathing is to get it down there and deep. My breathing was so it's just
not breathing from the diaphragm, hyperventilating.
No, exactly. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. And KT and I sat in this little vestibule of a backstage, before, and it was a hot summer night. And we were back there sweating, and she's in this beautiful gown, which she has hoisted up around her knees, spread with her legs spread, fanning herself. And we just look at each other like, can you even believe he's here? So he was there, and we did it, and he was incredibly generous to us. And when John Weber came over, he said, I loved the changes and I wished there were more, which anyone who knows anything about Stephen Sondheim knows that he was fastidious about his voicings for his songs and the accuracy of his melodies. And here we had jazzified them. I mean, John's jazz settings are extraordinary. He has, reharmonized melody lines. It's really hearing the music anew, and to have Sondheim's blessing on that. And then, the happy ending to the story is that Stephen Sondheim remained an email pen pal for the rest of his life, right up until the last email I got from him was 16 days before he passed, which was the night before I debuted this show, I Know Things Now, My Life in Sondheim's Words. And I wanted him to come. And he wrote back, I'm in Connecticut. I have sprained my ankle, which means I am missing press previews of Company, press previews of Assassins, and I will not be able to attend your show. But thank you for doing the show. Was the last thing he wrote to me, which was lovely.
That's you'll have that. You'll cherish that for the rest of your life. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, congratulations on it. I mean, where does this particular album rank for you personally? Because, you've done so much great music. You've paid tribute to so many other extraordinary talents through your ability to really take that lyric and make it your own, as was discovered really early, in years for you. For you, what is it? Is this album sort of also tying into, an exploration of who Jeff is, where Jeff's been, where Jeff's headed? And, we were living in a time right now in the last couple of years that have been like that, where it's been like that in terms of people pausing, reflecting, looking at what we've done, moving forward. What's next chapter for us? Who am I? Who have I been? Who do I want to be going forward? Does that album tie into it in a deep level for you, as much as it is incredibly entertaining to listen to and beautifully produced and, sweeps people off their feet and all the wonderful Sondheim music? It runs very deep for you. Where does this place for you? And
it's a very good question, and I will answer it by saying this. My first album is called the 1959 Broadway Songbook, which is the songs that were playing on Broadway in the year I was born. And then the last album I recorded before this one, and I was not sober yet, is called Dancing in the Dark. And this one is called I Know Things Now. So yes, to me, there is a trajectory in my recorded work that there is sort of a victory lap psychological feeling for me about this album, that I'm actually revealing how my heart works.
Yeah.
Where it hurts, where it has hope, where there's joy, and where there's great sorrow. And Sondheim's lyrics gave me the ammunition and courage to make these statements.
Was it difficult to do? Was it something that was bubbling up to where you said, I've got to do this. I've got to do this?
It was thrilling to do. Yes, his music is still very challenging, but as Sarah Louise Lazarus taught me way back in the 1980s, I started with the lyrics. So I just went through and looked for lyrics that told my story and I pieced. There are a lot of songs that are threaded together, or even just one or two that are put together that become a story of their own. So they each are telling a specific, as Sandra Lee would say, each one's like a different scene. Each one is a different texture. But it is thrilling to go on stage and be this authentic, is the word. Throughout my performing life up until Sondheim, I've been very artful about pronouns in my singing and choosing songs that are you songs. I love you, or right. I songs, but very rarely about her, and never about him. So that this there has just been a wonderful exhilaration of performing this music and having the response that it has gotten. There have been just wonderful response from people who are hearing their own story, hearing Sondheim like they've never heard it before, which is definitely the dream. Is that someone would say, I never thought of that lyric that way, or I never even understood that lyric.
Right.
So it's hugely joyful.
What happens to you when you are when you're on stage doing your thing? Is that a great shot? Yeah.
Julie Wilson, another. I would not be here without having had her as a teacher, and that's from a show we did together at the Algonquin when she was the ripe old age of 79.
Yes.
And at 79, this is one of the things she taught me, wanting to learn an entirely new show. Phyllis McGuire of the McGuire sisters, how hard they worked to recall the material that they knew. They were very tentative about adding anything new. But Julie Wilson, she taught me that Julie Wilson was a great tomato in her prime in the 50s. I think that's what they called those kind of singers. She would come out in the Copacabana with her gardenia in her hair, and she'd sing those double entendre songs and be very sexy and be done. That could have been her career, but as she aged, she evolved and embraced her wisdom and all the depth and texture that comes with living a life well lived, and put that into her work. So she is a North Star to me of how to treasure the gift of time on this planet and keep bringing it to the work.
Exactly.
She was learning new material right up until she stopped performing.
To the very end of performance. You've had an opportunity actually to be in the good graces of a lot of fabulous additional talents.
The marvelous Marilyn May. How about that? Now she, besides being a great teacher, literally, we teach together at the St. Louis Cabaret Conference. She is, so I think she's 93 now.
Unbelievable.
She's about to turn 94 and still does, 11 shows in a row at Feinstein's 54 Below.
Incredible energy and passion.
She is my pacer rabbit when we teach at St. Louis, because she's up at 9 a.m, looking just like that, teaching these kids all day long and then doing a show that night. So I have to sit there and say, if she can do this, so can I. Right. That is some life force that woman has, and a set of pipes and a heart and a mind. And she's there's no one else like her. If you haven't heard her, see her now. She's about to do There's More at 94, I think is her next tour. Here Comes More at 94. I mean, it's not to be believed.
Got to get her on our show and celebrate her at some point. She hasn't been on our show yet, but because schedules are crazy, but would love to find a way to connect with her and welcome her on. That would be fantastic.
I would love to hear the stories you'd pull out of her.
Here's another legend, Patricia Neal.
Oh, Patricia Neal, bless her heart. We met on a cruise that we did for the Theater Guild. I was the quote unquote director, which is another hat that I wear. And she was one of the artists on board. And I got to, well, direct is a very big word, but she did a production of, she sang Send in the Clowns for us. And it just can't get any better. She's an amazing lady. Talk about a story of survival. Wow.
Yes, on many levels. You mentioned KT Sullivan. Here you are joined with KT and, of course, Tommy Tune.
One of my favorite Manhattan towers is
Tommy Tune.
He's 5'17", I think is what he says.
I think he is.
That is backstage at my Cy Coleman show at Feinstein's at the Regency, which, sidebar. So this is me performing at the Regency Hotel, where I had been a room service waiter and, met Phyllis McGuire. And, true to Cabaret, you make your entrance through the kitchen.
Yes, right.
And passing through the kitchen, 3 of the waiters are still there from when I was were still there from when I was a room service waiter. I mean, that was jaw-dropping to me to just see that, have that milestone marker of the leap from where I'd started.
Full circle, right? Life oftentimes is full circle.
Full circle.
It's extraordinary, these experiences. Liz Calloway, of course, another.
We went to high school together. She is a dear friend and extraordinary talent. She was back then, too. She was, that voice is like going to school with Judy Garland. I mean, she just would open her mouth and out would come that sound. And her mother was another great teacher. Her mother literally was a teacher, Shirley Calloway. We would go over to Liz's house after school, and Shirley, who was singing in the Chicago Symphony Choir and taught private voice, would play for us. So, Anne Calloway and Liz, and there were a handful of us who were very, very close friends because we all loved this music. So that was a...
And their dad, wasn't he a news anchor, or he was in Chicago?
John Calloway, yes.
Yes, right. Did your dad and PR ever have any interactions with him?
No, because by the time I met Liz and Anne, Shirley had divorced John, so I actually didn't have much contact with him. With him, Shirley was bringing them up in Winnetka on her own. They were 3 very brave women at that time, and very talented. Oh, J.K. Simmons. that he's there because Sandra Lee works with him. That's he marvel at him.
Yeah, another great talent, huh?
Yes.
Andrew Bernhard.
We were on a benefit together. Yes, and she was great. That's one of those things where, like, could I please be in a picture with you? So here's Tova Feldshuh, who is about to open on Broadway next week as Mrs. Bryce in Funny Girl. And, she's a 6-time Tony and Emmy Award nominee. And I had the great good fortune to meet her when we were both playing the Algonquin Hotel back in the 90s. And we have remained friends throughout all these years. But she, in my sobriety, began reaching out to me to direct her. So I directed a show of hers called Aging is Optional. And most recently, we did a show called Tova is Leona, where we created this what if Leona Helmsley came back from purgatory to do her make her nightclub debut, and Tova just ripped the place apart. And I just want to give a shout out to Tova, because during the pandemic, when all of us were looking for things to do, Tova had the great gift of being having her memoir being published by Hachette. And so she invited me into the virtual writing room with her to help, in the capacity that I would have as a director, to coach her on her writing as she crafted this memoir about her mother and her conflicted relationship with her mother. And yes, I even designed this collage on the back of, because the book graphic designer sent was appalling. And I said, I can do better than that. So anyway, I'm very grateful to have that she entrusted me with being a Jiminy Cricket for her as she created this beautiful book. And to have had
you did that beautifully. You timed that lifting of the book beautifully. They could use you at QVC. That was perfect.
Well, it just
I just happened to have it was smoothly done. Most people fumble with it, and
it lives right here. That's all.
We always sometimes when we get a chance, we do a little of that Edward R. Murrow person to person. We're now coming to the home of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Fascinated, and I know our viewers probably are, with the room that you're in and some of the memorabilia that's around you. Tell us about the room that you're in there in New York.
Well, the obvious one is Judy Garland over my shoulder. And of course, I love Judy Garland for every reason that everyone loves Judy Garland. Just a genius with gift of God voice. The poster is there because Star is Born is, I believe, one of her finest performances. And my mother passed away in 2019, and 3 days later I was singing in London because that's what I was booked to do, and that's what my mom would have wanted me to do. But it was very, very hard to leave the country at that moment. And I passed a movie memorabilia shop, which you don't see those anymore. But lo and behold, on King's Road there in Chelsea, I saw this poster in the window, and I bought it. And it's a gift from my mom, and I think of her when I see it.
How much is that poster in the window?
It was a nice gift from my mom.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the story. And then the other thing that I'll forever treasure is my Hirschfeld, which is Al Hirschfeld did the caricatures in the New York Times for over 60 years, and he lived to be 103 years old. And when he was 89, was the age he was at when I recorded the 1959 Broadway Songbook, and we commissioned him to do I can't do this. We commissioned him to do the cover art, and so that that also was a dream. Since I could hold a cast album in my hand, I knew who Al Hirschfeld was. I knew who Sandra Lee was. I knew who Al Hirschfeld was, and to have him draw a caricature of me is a treasure.
That is absolutely amazing. That's a true gift. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the funny story associated with it is he drew from photographs, not from life. He would make sketches while he watched shows, but he drew really from photographs. And so he had asked for photographs of me to work from. But the People magazine called my publicist, who's Donald Smith, who is that figure you can barely see right there. Donald was one of my great teachers. Donald Smith Promotions was the MGM, the MGM studio system of Cabaret for me. He groomed me beautifully and was one of my first great publicists. But People magazine called Donald and said, we're doing an article on Al Hirschfeld and his postage stamps. And we want a photo of him drawing, working with a model. And he doesn't work from models, but he's working on Jeff Harnar's caricature. Would Jeff mind going to his studio and pretending to pose? Would Jeff mind? So I went to that brown house and climbed the 5 flights of stairs to his studio. And as he sat in his barber chair, and I posed for him. And the footnote to the story is that the photo that you see in People magazine is, if I'm Al Hirschfeld drawing, you see this of my hand. This is what you see of me. And it like that. And it says scene drawing Jeff Harnar, but it's just my hand. So for a week, I walked around with my hand like.
Did
like
people recognize the hand?
No, I got on airplanes and I was like,
"That's my hand." Believe
so
it,
that's
it
the
is.
only time I've been in People magazine. Wah, wah. So far.
So far, there is that, the Sexiest Man Alive and all that they do and everything. So
Yes.
you never know, right? You never know what
I
goes
pretty
on.
much know about that one.
Yeah, that one you're speaking of accolades, reviews, commentary, I mean, you've had so much incredible press over the years, left and right from all across the country and beyond. And I think it's quite amazing, huh? And we've dug up just a few of them here over the years. The man who invited his audiences to fly. I mean, what a great compliment.
It sounds like it's about me, but it's really about Sammy Cahn.
It's about Sammy Cahn.
Yeah, it's about the song "Come Fly with Me," but it does sound.
But a little bit, I think you do. When you do your thing, you doesn't it look like you're saying that? Come fly with us.
Yes.
It's really important.
I'm very lucky, and it was a time. I was very lucky that it was a time when literally the day before I was reviewed by the New York Times and the day after I was reviewed by the New York Times was like two different worlds.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden the phone is just ringing.
It's just ringing.
I mean, that was the impact of that. And it still is the impact of that.
It still is. Yeah, absolutely.
But those days, and back then, this is another shady story to tell. Back then, living in New York, the paper comes out around 2 a.m, so we'd be up and we would go and we would wait. Sometimes we'd go to the New York Times building and wait for a bundle to come up or, but we knew which newsstands would have the paper and we'd stand there at 2 a.m, flipping through to see if the review was there and reading it. And, as you can tell from some of those headlines, there were a lot of happy nights where,
yes,
I floated home because the New York Times gave me a huge gift. All
of them did all around, again, the country, and you still, get it when you're performing.
That headline that says "not so innocent, not so polite."
Yes.
That's the first show I did where I was sober. So
it ties in.
The last line of the review says, like something like, "I don't know what happened, but he's been through the fire and made it out, and what doesn't kill you," or something like that. I mean, he didn't know what had changed, but he knew something had changed.
Something had changed, right? Exactly. There you are. There, really cool. And I mentioned, the involvement with PBS as well, too, which has been fantastic. And this was one of the projects, the 1959 Broadway Songbook. Tell us about that and being involved in the PBS thing, too.
Well, that brings up a wonderful venue experience, which is the Brownville Concert Series in Brownville, Nebraska. Now, Brownville is a town that has a population of 145, and the Brownville Concert Hall seats 150. And yet, it is a wonderful art benefactor of the arts, Jim Keen, took an old church and converted it into a state-of-the-art performing arts center and put it in this small town, and made it so that PBS trucks could literally pull up and plug in and do 6-camera shoots. And it's like the movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. His goal was, it's all not for profit, it's all 501(c)(3). All of the artists come from around the world to perform here, and it's to make this kind of art, all kinds of art, music, dance, acting, all kinds of art accessible to these local audiences. And so for me, as a cabaret performer, where sometimes you're performing in a converted cafeteria and sometimes you're at 54 Below, sometimes you're at Carnegie Hall, and and sometimes you're in Brownville, Nebraska, that you have to take 2 planes and drive 90 minutes to get to this little town. But it is, this year alone, I'm performing there 3 times because we just did a memorial for Jim Keen. He just passed during COVID, and we did a benefit for him, and now I get to go. I went and did my Sondheim show, and now we get to go back and do a holiday show. It is like going to Norman Rockwell, Stockbridge, Massachusetts. It is just charm. It's so lovely. I love the people. Love everything about that.
That's fantastic. Do you like to travel around? Do you like going from place to place and city to city? I mean, you've certainly done that with so many of your shows, all over. And this one was a great one too. And, it's something that you go to different places and you have all these different people who just love what you do and all these different performances. And it's just... You're pretty much carried away.
it is the dream. Yeah, that was the first show that I did with Sarah and Alex collaborating back in 1989. That took me from playing the clubs where you do one show a week, if you're lucky, to 7 shows a week. That show moved to the ballroom, and we did 5 weeks of 7 shows. Unheard of.
Cold Water, again, more of the fabulous reviews. And
next to Stephen Sondheim, arguably, where my heart lives the most.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
This was just a funny show. I wanted to see if I could do a show that would be like stand-up comedy through songs. So does this song make me look fat? And those who know my story know that.
Right, exactly. Right, exactly. Here's another great one too. And
yeah, that's my mom and dad on their first date. That picture.
Right there, really? Oh, that's fantastic.
That was their first date, 1952.
What are their names?
Marilyn and Bob Harnar. Beautiful.
They got a chance to see your success.
Yes.
That's a gift unto itself. Not everybody has that opportunity. Sometimes people pass just before the big things start to happen, and yet those people in your life were there rooting you on, or at least there. And that's definitely a gift.
I got an even greater gift, which is I got sober years before they passed. So I was, they got to see that part.
That's a gift for them too. Yeah, both.
And I got to see their son. With both of them, and it didn't look like that was going to happen. So, but yes, the image of my parents' faces in the audience is, whenever I'm feeling uninspired, I just have to imagine. Tommy Tune always says, put the faces of your favorite people in the audience.
Oh yeah, that's how I remember starting out in television. A lot of people, when they see that big camera with that big eye focusing in on them, they're like, and one of the things they always used to teach, I don't know if they still do, I probably still do, is they will say, when you're looking at the camera, don't think of the thousands or millions of people watching. Think about one person you care about. Maybe it's your grandmother or somebody that you love, and make it like you're talking just to them. And then suddenly, for some people who have those nerves or are always thinking about the millions out there versus just the one you're trying to reach, it makes a big difference. And that's great, great advice that you got too, because it's the same in this industry too. Think about the one, and then it becomes almost like the one for everybody who's watching or listening, which is kind of cool. It's a great shot.
Yes, that's my love of movies. That's my Vincent Minnelli show, a tribute to all the music that came from his wonderful films. And some of those posters I own, but most of them were borrowed from a movie memorabilia shop that is long gone in Manhattan. It's
long gone. That and Tower Records.
And this is from my dad, to this thing of trying to come up with images because you're fighting for newspapers to print something. So you want to give them a horizontal image and a vertical image, and you want it to be something that's going to pop or be of interest.
Exactly. And this certainly did.
This is pre-Photoshop.
Just the real things there in front of you and around you. You mentioned this one too. What was this one like for those who maybe aren't familiar with Dancing in the Dark?
It's a wonderfully wonderfully orchestrated and arranged compilation of great songs, and I love this album. But it's more to do with the metaphorical dance that I felt New York City was at that time. Sometimes it's a happy dance, but sometimes it feels like dancing in the dark, looking for the light of a new love to help you through the night.
How did you get through the last few years, 3 years? A lot of people, like I said, they've been looking inward. They've been looking at next chapter. They've been reflective on their own lives. How has being there and being, living through it all affected you? What has Jeff learned about Jeff through the process? You have this fabulous new album. You have this wonderfully well-received, concert. But when that's all done and you look in the mirror, how has any of this impacted Jeff in any different direction?
So in my sobriety, one of the wonderful books I read was Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And I really do believe the precept of that book, which is the only moment we have any power in, is this one. Can't do anything about the past, and the future doesn't exist. I can travel to the future to do planning, but life is happening here. The only point of power has to do with the choices and decisions I make right now. What is the next right choice? So I have been trying to live my life that way for the past 11 plus years in my sobriety. So when the world shut down with the pandemic, it was kind of an existential feeling for me. It was like, well, what if my life were to end as I knew it? Was I doing exactly what I wanted to do with the people who I love, in places that I love? And I was. So I had no regrets about, I wish I had done, thanks to this miracle of, the internet and Zoom, and I had no longing for connection. There was ample connection for me. Thanks to Tova Feldshuh, I had this wonderful book that we wrote in a virtual writing room, which we would have done anyway, even if it had not been a pandemic. And then thank God that I live 6 blocks from Central Park, because every day, sometimes twice a day, I would walk over to Central Park. And I still do that every day that I can. I plan to do it this evening. It used to be I would look at the turtles in Central Park and think, look at the little heads bobbing in the water. It is now, I walk up now and sit down on the rock at Turtle Pond, and they know me, and they come walking out, and they climb up on my leg, and they take treats from me. so
do you have names for them?
I do not, but there's one in particular who I definitely know from your days. So it's been this is my 3rd year now of feeding the turtles. People are, pretty much gobsmacked because they're all looking at them and trying to coax them, and then I come and sit down, and they come
right to you.
Single file.
They feel a non-threatening, supportive energy. It's amazing because I have that same thing with animals, children, seniors. They just gravitate to me, and I've sort of studied that. I found it fascinating, and there's an energy that they can pick up, that you are there not to criticize, not to humiliate, not to hurt, not to knock. You're there to either provide support, caring, just spend time with, even if it's a turtle. There is some way that they can sense that you're there
to provide treats.
Throw out everything I just said about empathy and all that, but once the treats run out, they're snapping at you. We have your website up too. We wanted to just visually show it. It shows so many of the fabulous shows over the years as well, and people can go to you can join the mailing list too, quartet shows and duet shows and solo shows as well. And it also has his calendar, appearances, awards, discography as well, which, is something really terrific. This, of course, being the latest. There's you can hear the music on there as well and get some samples. There's videos, there's press, and of course, this is the homepage. Multi-award-winning New York cabaret concert and recording artist, the most important male cabaret performer to emerge since Michael Feinstein, the New York Times. There's a little bit more about I Know Things Now, My Life in Sondheim's words. You know, what I think is really beautiful about this is the timing of it, Jeff, because I think that through everything we've all been going through in our lives, and not just the health situation, just the craziness of everything we're seeing when we turn on the news, I think there's a lot of people that can resonate with your message through the music, especially now, because they've been looking at their lives and reevaluating, and they've been pausing in this great pause period and reflecting. So I think that the album really has a life that goes beyond even just listening to fantastic music. I think a lot of people are going to resonate with it on many different levels, which is the timing, again, is so apropos for our times. That's just my humble opinion.
I love that opinion. Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you.
I'm sure you've heard that too. Are people saying that, wow, I needed something like this now?
This is my first album that has come out when there's Facebook and Instagram. So it's the first time that people have actually in real time written to me, like that they've just listened to it, or that they're listening to it over and over in the car or whatever. It's a wonderful time to have artist and listener be so accessible, which is also something that I love about cabaret, is that the nature of it is intimacy. So the performer and the audience, there is an intimacy and an accessibility. And I love now that I can actually be talking with people, writing with people, communicating with people. It's not just letters that come months later in the mail or whatever. It's actually people saying, I just heard it. And
I love
so
it.
It's been lovely. Yeah.
It's really lovely. Touches here, I'm sure. Absolutely. What are some of those continued blessings and joys in your life, Jeff, that through it all, and you've been very open, authentic, and real in this conversation. I see a book eventually, memoir, something in the offing.
I'll get Tova to help me write it.
Yeah, get Tova. And it's very inspiring. And I'm sure a lot of people watching who know you for the music, know you for the performances, and maybe not know some of the backstory now really appreciate, which is what I love about what we do on this show with these conversations, not interviews. I don't call these interviews. I call them really conversations, Cavett, Carson style. They get to learn a little bit more and appreciate you. They see probably elements sometimes, maybe on different levels, of the guest themselves through their own lives. They can resonate with the guest through whatever it is they're sharing with us here on the show. For you, what are some of those continued blessings and joys that propel you forward through all these things that you have shared with us as life continues moving forward for you, Jeff?
Well, one of the things we haven't touched on is that in my sobriety, so in these last 11 years, I've been directing. Well, I talked about directing Tova's show, but I direct for a lot of people. And in fact, next month alone in September, 6 artists that I've directed will be doing their shows. So in between being there for them, I'll be performing my own show. And it's in our recovery program that I work, we are taught to help the next person who's recovering, because the only way I can keep the gift that is my sobriety is to help someone else freely, at no cost. It's just I give it back as it was given to me. And that spirit about directing makes I am only guiding people with tools that I know how to use, that have worked, that are I think are working for me.
Right.
And they can take them or leave them. That's not for me to say if they fit. If they don't, whatever. But I'm just there to be a guide to try and help them get their light to shine through, because we all have a light. We came here programmed individually with some divine purpose that shines through when the channel is open. So that gift, it's definitely made me a better performer, because I can't suggest a tool to a performer unless I'm actively working it myself. I never would have been this kind of director before I got sober. I would have been a dictator. I would have said, do it this way, go here, go that, you're doing it wrong. But now it's not like that at all.
No.
It's much more gentle and guiding. And Tova has given me the high compliment that in her storied career, I'm one of the top 5 directors she's ever worked with, which, given the body of her work, is saying quite something. But she said, because you make it safe. You make it. And what I've learned from working with Tova is an artist who gives you 100%, even if she doesn't believe in the suggestion. I'll say, I think the song, maybe if you tried it this way, and she'll say, I don't think that's right, but let me give it to you so you can see what it looks like. And she gives it 100%. Well, I can't say that I do that in rehearsal. So she teaches me that I need to go and be not defensive, take in suggestions and give it back to the director so they can see what they're, it's a wonderful, being teachable at age 63 is my goal. And I believe that can keep me young.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, somebody that, knows and has known that all too well, who always pops in towards the latter part. I don't know if you've seen some of the episodes of our series, but he always pops in towards the latter part of our show. Somebody who, again, knows that in the later years, you can still do your thing. Mr. George Burns is with us. He always pops in. I tell you, with his cigar and his hanky, he's always dapper. He said you knocked it out of the park. He loved the stories. He learned so much more about you and what makes you shine, what makes you tick. And my aunt collected dolls, and this is one of her collectibles. Got passed down to me. We put it on a nostalgic episode of the Jim Masters show, I don't know, a year and a half ago. The audience are Lovity viewers, and they already said you're a Lovity. You're a Jim Masters show Lovity, which is kind of cool. They fell in love with George. And so he's here, and he said, you knocked it out of the park, kiddo.
Thank
and he
you,
loved
George.
it, and he sends you all the very best. And he said, keep going. Keep going.
Can I show you something wacky if you can wait 1 minute, 1 second?
Yeah.
I can still talk to you while I'm getting it. But
this always triggers this. Everybody. George shows up.
Look what I got for my birthday.
When Billy Stritch was on the show, he had all these action figures that he whipped out too. It was kind of cool. What happened? Look at this.
A Jeff Harnar bobblehead. I didn't ask for it. It was just given to me, and I don't know what to do with it. So anyway,
well, Jeff Harnar bobblehead, say hello to George Burns. That's cool, huh?
He was a good friend of the McGuire sisters, so his name was spoken often around her townhouse.
Yes, that was a perfect segue.
They were supposed to open for him for his
George Burns. Incredible. This was really amazing, my friend. And I can't believe we chatted for about an hour and a half. I felt, it always goes by in a New York minute because we try to make it warm and conversational and fun. And viewers are already saying that you're a Lovity, and that is levity and love put together, a word that I just happened to say accidentally, and it sort of stuck. I say to all the guests that you can get Oscars, MAC Awards, Grammys, Tonys, Emmys, Peabodys, Tellys, Tonys, all of it. But how's it feel to get a Lovity from the Jim Masters show family, huh? Your feet tingling? That's what most guests say happens.
It feels Scrumdiddlyumptious.
Yeah. James Gavin, the author and biographer and journalist, was on the other night, and he said he was when he was designated a Jim Master Show levity, he actually, his feet weren't tingling; they weren't even touching the ground. He was levitating.
He was just levitating levity. That's very good.
Not easy to say fast, is it? I hope the show met whatever expectations you had, my friend, and you enjoyed the time with me as much as I have with you. It's been terrific.
It's been terrific. Thank you so very much, Jim. I really, really appreciate you sharing your beautiful platform with me. It's quite a privilege.
The pleasure is all mine, and we'll keep the porch light on for you, Jeff. You're welcome back anytime. There's the website, folks. Want to learn more, want to find out about the show. Real quick before we go with the show, and again, people might watch this a year from now, it'll be old news, but the show that is coming up, what can people expect? Tell us a little bit about it.
If you listen to the album, I don't speak in my show other than welcoming the audience and explaining that it's Sondheim's music and lyrics, but the story is mine. Then everything out of my mouth is a Sondheim lyric, virtually. It's so listening to the album is a very good indicator of what you're going to get. We have a couple surprises that aren't on the album, but it's very evocative of what the performing experience is like. The Laurie Beachman Theater at the West Bank Cafe is an absolutely wonderful place to be. Wonderful staff, wonderful food. So come an hour early before the show and have a great meal and see a great show on that beautiful stage.
Cool. There's the album there, folks. You can get it at Amazon as well if you want to know more about the tickets and everything else that Jeff's up to. JeffHarnar.com. You see it on the screen there. Check that out. Jeff, again, this was terrific. Spread the word about our show. We would really love that if you know of other folks like to pop on. And really a pleasure, real delight. And congratulations and everything. And thank you very, very much again for opening up about your life and feeling comfortable enough to share certain elements of your life with me and our viewers watching around the world. Really appreciate that. And you're welcome back anytime, my friend.
Thank you, Jim. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. You take care and be well, and good luck with the album and with the show.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Jeff Harnar here on the Jim Masters Show. Did you guys enjoy it? Of course you did. We thank you very much for watching, gang. Now, one more time, if you would like to learn more about the shows coming up and everything else he's doing, go to the website right there, JeffHarnar.com, and we'll show you that album again. It's really fantastic and critically acclaimed already. I Know Things Now, My Life in Sondheim's Words. Really, really fantastic. And now you know a little bit more about the reason for the album, the beauty of the album, the importance in Jeff's life for this album to come out at this time. You'll enjoy the music. You'll enjoy all the songs, but now you have a little deeper understanding and meaning for the reason for it, which I think is kind of cool. What a great conversation, right? That's what we do here on the Jim Masters Show, entertainment, lifestyle, variety talk show series. We have conversations, good ones. And, you know, you never know what direction they're going to go in. And they're just a real solid pleasure. And so we thank Jeff for being here again. He's been doing his thing for a good long time. He loves what he does. And there's a lot of purpose behind what he does. Multiple award-winning New York Cabaret concert and recording artist. Maybe you've seen his work also on PBS and elsewhere. And he's a consummate performer and loves what he does. And we congratulate him on all the cool things that are happening for him. We thank Jeff for being with us here on the show. And of course, we thank all of you for watching the Jim Masters Show series. Thanks for all the great comments. Keep them coming. Don't forget to comment on our YouTube channel. Gang, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure and give it a thumbs up. Yeah, there's a thumbs up icon. Really important. When you click the thumbs up icon on our YouTube channel and you leave a comment on the YouTube channel and all the episodes, we appreciate it. We love it. YouTube also sees it, and then they will take the episode and they'll allow more people to see it around the world. It actually helps get these episodes in the eyes and ears of more people around the world when you take just a quick moment to give us a thumbs up, like, and leave a comment on the YouTube channel. For those of you who've been doing it, we see that, duly noted, and man, we appreciate it. It's so nice of you to do that. And if you've never done it yet, just leave a comment, quick comment on there. Some of you like to chat when the show is on. Take some of that energy and put it as a comment on the channel. That really helps us. And we thank you so much, gang. You guys are so cool. Don't forget to subscribe too to the channel. You'll be a part of the JMS Levity Squad, which is really a cool thing. It's a badge of honor. No cost to subscribe. Just hit that red button. And don't forget as well, make sure you click the notification bell. You'll see a little bell icon next to the subscribe button. Really important you click that so you'll be notified every time we have episodes, special episodes, pop-up shows, live episodes, which generally most of them are, but every once in a while, if I'm out of town or something, we do something special for you. So make sure you click the notification bell. All right. This has been absolutely awesome. If you want to know more about all the other episodes that are coming up, just scroll through our YouTube channel. You can find me right here on YouTube, of course, at Jim Masters TV. That is where the Jim Masters Show series is housed. Hundreds and hundreds of episodes that you can binge watch and share and enjoy. And thanks to those of you who have been doing that. And also I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Jim Masters TV. All right. Good show, huh? Really, really a good show. And again, if you want to hear the music, go to the website, and also you can go to Amazon and just look for Jeff Harnar, Harnar, and you'll have an opportunity to hear all the great music. One more time, there's what the album looks like. And that's our show. Thanks for being with us, gang. We don't say goodbye around here. We say see you later, cheer, ciao, hasta la vista. We say shalom, sayonara, moi loop, take care, be well. Everything else we can slip in there. Auf Wiedersehen. And we thank you for being with us on the show. Hope you enjoy these episodes. Let us know. Interact with us. Give us a shout. Leave a comment. Interact with us. We love to interact with all of you. From JMS Central and Levity Hall and our Levity Hall studios, this is Jim Masters. Thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, where we always have a good time with all of you on the Jim Masters Show. You guys be well. Take care. And thanks for spending the time with us today. We'll be back with more great shows coming up. And if you're watching this archived, stay right there. Another great episode comes up here on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. Be well, gang. We'll see you again soon. And thanks for joining us on the Jim Masters Show. Cheers.